Johnny Gosch was born on November the 12th, 1969, but would vanish off the face of the earth on September the 5th, 1982, at the age of just 12. Johnny lived in West Des Moines, Iowa, where he was a paper boy in the area. On September the 3rd, 2 days before his disappearance, Johnny and his parents attended a local high school football game. During the game, Johnny asked for some money to go and get himself some food from a concession stand, but once he didn't return after some time had passed, his father went looking for him, and he found him, strangely talking to a police officer. Once reseated, Johnny asked to stand somewhere else as he wanted to watch the game on his own, but somewhere where his parents could still see him to assure themselves that he was safe. However, after a while, he vanished again. Upon searching, he was discovered, this time under the bleachers, talking again to the same police officer. Though what was said between them was never discovered. On September the 5th, 1982, at some point between 6 and 7 AM that morning, Johnny left for his usual paper route, but would never return home. Normally, he would wake his father to help him with the job, but for whatever reason, on this particular day, he decided against it. The only time he would be seen again that can be confirmed by multiple witnesses is successfully collecting the newspapers for the delivery that morning. A neighbour did claim to have seen Johnny talking to a stocky man with a blue Ford Fairmont with a Nebraska license plate. This neighbour, called Mike, didn't hear what was said, but claimed to have seen this encounter take place from his bedroom window. He also insisted that he saw a different man following Johnny on his way back home as well. Another witness by the name of John Rossi claims to have seen a man in a blue car talking to Gosch, and he found it somewhat strange at the time. He unfortunately couldn't remember the license plate number, but he hoped that it would come back to him one day. Rossi did undergo hypnosis to hopefully recall it, and he did inform the police of some of the numbers, and the vehicle was from Warren County, Iowa, but it was never found. As the morning passed, Johnny's parents, John and Noreen, began to receive phone calls from angry customers complaining that their papers weren't being delivered. This was especially odd as Johnny had never once missed a delivery since taking on the job. John Sr. did a search of the neighborhood and almost immediately found his son's wagon full of newspapers around 2 blocks from their family home. They immediately contacted the police but were always very critical over how the authorities handled the situation. The officers claimed that they couldn't consider Johnny a missing person until 72 hours had passed. Noreen Gosch claimed that no officer even showed up to take her report until 45 minutes after she had made the phone call in a panic, but they wouldn't even begin searching until the 72 hours had expired, considering there was no ransom note and no evidence of a kidnapping taking place at all. Originally, the police believed that Johnny simply ran away, which is why they didn't act as quickly. But they later retracted the statement, believing that he was kidnapped, though they couldn't find any evidence, suspects, or motive. Johnny Gosch was such a big story in the media, he was even one of the first missing persons to have appeared on the front of milk cartons. Just a few months after Johnny was last seen, Noreen claimed that he was actually spotted in Oklahoma. A woman witnessed a boy yelling for help as he was dragged away by 2 men, though there's no evidence to back up this claim. In 1982, Noreen established the Johnny Gosch Foundation, where she visited several schools and spoke at seminars to bring more awareness to sexual predators, and pushed hard for a state legislation for immediate police response to reports of missing children. This actually was successful and became a law in Iowa in 1984, even named after Johnny, and similar laws were even passed in numerous other states as a result of it. Bizarrely, on August the 12th, 1984, just shy of 2 years since Johnny was last seen, another paperboy in the Des Moines, Iowa area by the name of Eugene Martin vanished, also whilst delivering newspapers. There was no definitive evidence to connect the 2 cases, but Noreen Gosch claimed that she was actually warned of this abduction months in advance by a private investigator who was searching for her son. She claimed that she was informed that another kidnapping would take place in the second weekend in August of 1984, and that it would be another paperboy in the south side of Des Moines, Iowa. In 1989, a 21-year-old man by the name of Paul A. Benazzi confided to his attorney John DeCamp that he had been abducted into a sex ring where Johnny Gosch, who was then a teenager, was abducted, and he claimed that he was forced to help kidnap him. DeCamp believed that he was telling the truth, and Noreen even met with him and claimed that he knew things he would have only known from directly talking with her son. He knew of Johnny's birthmark, a scar on his tongue, and a burn mark on his lower leg. He also pointed out a certain stammer in Johnny's speech whenever he was upset, none of which was public knowledge at the time. But despite all of this, the FBI and police still refused to interview him, not believing that he was a credible witness. Benazzi went on to accuse Republican Party activist Lawrence E. King of running an underage prostitution ring and claimed that he victimized him at a young age. But in 1990, a county grand jury refused to charge him and believed that it was all a giant hoax. In 1993, sadly, John and Noreen Gosch got divorced. But in March, 4 years later, at around 2:30 a.m., Noreen claims that she was awoken by a knock at her apartment door, and she opened it to see her now 27-year-old son, Johnny Gosch, who was standing there with a man she didn't recognize.
We visited and talked. He had one other young man with him.
Yeah.
Johnny confirmed just about all of the things Paul Benazzi had told me. Everything that we talked about, he filled in the blanks. And the reason for his visit to me, he had seen the Lisa Gibbons program.
Right.
He believed me when I said I would do anything to help him. And what he wanted me to do was to do something to get these men arrested and to promise not to tell that he had been to see me.
Yeah.
Which I did not do. I kept silent for 2 years.
She claimed that she instantly knew it was her son, who then proved it by showing a birthmark on his chest. She claimed that they talked for an hour and a half, but Johnny would only speak if the strange man gave him his approval. He didn't confide in her where he was living or what he was doing, but claimed he was still in danger and couldn't return or stay with her. He was never seen again. Noreen, however, didn't speak about this encounter, believing it would put her son in further danger.
And then I was on the witness stand in a courtroom on the Benazzi case, and the attorney asked me, in all the time Johnny had been missing, had I ever seen or talked to him in person?
Yeah.
And the attorney was not even prepared for the answer. He had no clue that I had seen Johnny.
That's your attorney.
And I tried to avoid the question, and the judge told me that I had to answer it or I'd be in contempt.
Oh, jeez.
However, her ex-husband John claimed that he isn't entirely convinced that this visit even took place. There's nothing to confirm nor deny it being true, just Noreen's word, though she still vows to this day that it happened. The authorities doubted that Johnny was even still alive, but his parents always maintained hope. On September the 1st, 2006, Noreen Gosch claimed she found photographs left at her front door, which she immediately posted on her website. In one photo, 3 boys are bound and gagged, and in another, she believes it's an image of 12-year-old Johnny Gosch, gagged with his hands and feet tied and a human brand on his shoulder. A third picture shows a man believed to be dead with something possibly tied around his neck. Noreen believes one of the killers molested her son, and she found the photos on another website that featured child pornography. However, on September the 13th, just a couple of weeks later, an anonymous letter was mailed to Des Moines, Iowa police. Gentlemen, someone has played a reprehensible joke on a grieving mother. The photo in question is not one of her son, but of 3 boys in Tampa, Florida, about 1979 to 80, challenging each other to an escape contest. There was an investigation concerning that picture made by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. No charges were filed and no wrongdoing was established. The lead detective on the case was named Zalva. This allegation should be easy enough to check out. The detective in question, Nelson Zalva, was located and questioned and did indeed work for the Hillsborough County, Florida Sheriff's Office in the 1970s, and he confirmed that what the letter said was true. He did indeed investigate the photographs before Johnny disappeared. He even interviewed the children in them, and there was no evidence of any crime taking place. However, Zalva couldn't prove that they were the same photographs as 30 years earlier. Though it's worth noting, only 3 boys in the picture were correctly identified. The 4th's identity remains a mystery. Many believe it's Johnny Gosch, including his own mother Noreen. However, many discard most of these claims as there's no definitive evidence to back them up, and they all come from Noreen, believing that she was just a grieving mother holding on to any hope that her son might return. On September the 6th, 2012, just a day after the 30-year anniversary of Johnny's disappearance, Noreen wrote an open letter to her son in a Des Moines newspaper. Dear Johnny, it has been 30 long years since you were ripped away from your family and everything you knew in life to be good. On the day you were kidnapped, it was so difficult to believe such a thing could happen in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing like this had happened in our community before. I could only imagine what was happening to you, the terror, fear and pain you endured. In the first days, thousands of people volunteered to help us search for you. Each time a search party would come back and had found nothing, I breathed a sigh of relief because perhaps it was a sign you were still alive. My prayers for you were that you would be found safe, but until that time, God would be watching over you. Each night I prayed that some new idea would come to me to try that would bring you back home. Every morning there was something new to try, someone to reach who might help, but in my heart I knew each minute, each hour of every day was time out of your life. Within a short time, TV shows wanted to hear your story. As the shows would air, new leads were coming in to be worked. We hired a private investigator to work full time. It was at that point we began to get real answers. What we learned, no parent would want to know, but we had to face the truth of why children are kidnapped. At that time, I not only missed you, but the pain of not knowing what was happening was a walking nightmare. What you have suffered, no child should ever have to go through. At times I would remember you as a little boy, and some of the things you said and did. One time you told me at 5 years old that you wanted a blue castle cake for your birthday. I had no idea where you had seen that type of cake, but eventually I found it in a cookbook, the exact cake you described. Building the cake was a family project. You were so happy when it was finished that you didn't want to eat it. You told me you just wanted to keep it forever. Every parent wants the best for their children, and it breaks my heart to know that your innocence and childhood were robbed from you. I wish you could be as happy as you were in this photo. A short time after you were kidnapped, a neighbor lady called me and said, I would like to tell you what a fine boy you raised. Johnny helped my 6-year-old son. One night after school, some bullies were beating up my son and smashed his lunchbox. Johnny ran to help. He jumped in, tossing each of the bullies onto the ground, telling them to get lost. They ran like the wind. Johnny then walked my little boy home. I just thought you should know what a kind boy you raised. Johnny, you came back home and never mentioned the good deed you had done that day by helping the other little boy. It was very touching to hear. Somehow it made me feel as though you were not so far away. As years passed, we received valuable information that you were possibly still alive. Other victims contacted us. We had more pieces to place in this giant puzzle. Then came a real break. Information that you were definitely still alive and had escaped reached us. You are grown now and do not look like the little boy who was kidnapped, so you can hide in plain sight and live. Even though that means it isn't possible for a normal family life, you are safe. The information surfaced a number of years ago. My hope is that you are still alive today. It has been a very long 30 years, and no one knows that better than you. I am proud of you, Johnny, and hope you are able to see this message. I love you. Mum. Was the boy in the photographs Johnny Gosch? Was he taken and held captive? And if so, is he still out there somewhere, in danger and unable to return home? Johnny Gosch's disappearance took the nation by storm, and after nearly 40 years, we are still seeking answers.